Hi, this is Bill Manning. I'm a producer with Idaho Public Television, and we're going to do a quick 360-degree tour of the Hemingway House in Ketchum, Idaho. We're going to start here on the outside on the long deck to the east of the house, which offers these sweeping views to the north into the Boulder Mountains, and then east over Ketchum and into the Pioneer Mountains. Now, if you think about when this house was first built here in the 1950s, it would have been one of the few homes that Ernest Hemingway could have shot trap right off this deck. The house was built in 1953 by businessman Bob Topping, and it was built in the style of the Sun Valley Lodge. And he built it to entertain, and so inside we'll point out some places where he had built-in projector niches and a movie screen. The Hemingways bought this home in 1959 for $50,000. Ernest Hemingway lived here until his death in 1961, but Mary Hemingway stayed here for another 25 years, so in many ways it's Mary's house. And after her death in 1986, she donated the house to the Nature Conservancy. They transferred ownership to the community library in 2017, and the community library has since developed an artist in residence program so that a basement apartment here in the house provides access and time for an artist to come here and do their work and contemplate the Hemingway legacy. This is the front of the house, and there's a really nice, cool front stairwell and then the front entrance adjacent to a big patio. There's a plaque on the wall that notes that it's listed on the National Historic Register. And inside the front door is the foyer where Ernest Hemingway killed himself in 1961. This living room is a big room, and it was designed for entertaining. And it also has these giant windows that let in all this really natural light. So when you're here in the day, it's a really beautifully lit room. Back in the foyer, you'll be able to see little niches where the projectors would have sat, and then little windows in the living room that would shot across the room to a big screen at the far end of the room. On the left, the room included a dining area. Also on the left is a built-in television set, and there are people still alive who remember Hemingway sitting here on the couch and watching boxing matches.
Cassius Clay of the United States comes out in the light trunks. Pietrkowski of Poland.
There were 3 channels in his day: ABC, NBC, and CBS feeds. And there's a little note on the TV that says which of those channels were which network. The TV is also surrounded by these built-in bookcases, and Ernest Hemingway would have filled them with the books he ordered monthly. The portrait that you can see over the fireplace in the center of the living room was actually added after his death. It was a gift given to the Nature Conservancy. Also at the fireplace, you'll see 2 trophy heads, an impala and a kudu from Africa, that are assumed to have been animals shot by Ernest Hemingway. So there really, throughout this house, are evidences of Hemingway's travels from throughout the world. Now, the furniture in this room all dates to the 1950s. The Hemingways bought this home furnished. There are a few items in here, such as the tall cabinet on the right and some of the tables with Spanish tiles that Ernest and Mary Hemingway added later. At the far end of the living room, you can see a painting by Waldo Pierce, and it shows a bull being butchered after it was killed in a bullfight. And that painting was a gift from Waldo Pierce, who was a friend of Hemingway's, to Ernest Hemingway on his birthday in 1959. And there's an inscription at the bottom that says, "Happy birthday," and it also says, "Bon appetit." And nobody knows for sure exactly where the Hemingways kept this unframed painting. Now here in the kitchen, it's pretty much like it was in the 1950s. It has the big double ovens, it has a countertop stove. The furnishings are all mid-century modern, and it really is as Ernest and Mary Hemingway would have used it in the 1950s. There's a stainless steel wall behind the cooking surface, and above the stainless steel are tiles that Mary Hemingway brought with her from Spain after their trip in 1959. Also here in the kitchen, you'll find some of the old ice chests that the Hemingways would have used on their, hunting and fishing and other outdoor adventure to keep their food cold. There are photos of them taking picnics in and around Idaho, and so one assumes that those are ice chests that would have accompanied them on their outdoor outings. Now, once you get upstairs, there are two big rooms. The master bedroom suite was Mary's, and it has these big, beautiful windows surrounded on three sides that brought in all this beautiful light into this room. It also has several fireplaces. There are more trophy heads here. There are more of the traveling trunks that testify to the Hemingway's world travels. There's also this big curved closet that still contains Mary's dresses. She died in 1986, but some of the clothes in the closet date back to the 1930s. Now, taped to the closet near the doorway is a print of a Cézanne painting. Now, this was painted by Cézanne near his home in South France, and Mary had this print taped on the wall here, which is indicative of the influence that Cézanne had on Ernest Hemingway's writing. Hemingway thought a lot about how he would develop his writing and wanted to incorporate techniques that he learned from the artists he saw in the Paris museums in the 1920s. So it's significant that this remains in the house all these years. The desk and chair in this room were brought by Mary from Cuba. And Mary decorated this desk with photos under glass, and the desk almost acts kind of like a virtual scrapbook for her. As she would have been working at this desk, she would have seen these photos from Spain and from bullfighting, and there's this real sense that she was spending her time here, thinking back on her long and adventurous life. There's also a couple posters in this house from the bullfights, and this one above the desk features Antonio Ordóñez, who was one of the bullfighters that Hemingway featured in his book, The Dangerous Summer. Now, in the back of the bedroom is a powder room and a bathroom where Mary Hemingway tacked up family photos, notes, pictures of Hemingway with his cats. It's also back here that Mary taped up a print of the painting called The Farm. It was painted by Juan Miró, who was a friend of Hemingway's in the 1920s, and it was the first piece of art that he bought at the urging of Gertrude Stein. It's been described as Hemingway's most prized possession, at least after his boat, the Pilar. And the painting now hangs in the National Gallery, and it has this long and dramatic story involving a legal battle and even a clandestine trip out of Cuba. What's interesting is that Mary, his fourth wife, and Hadley, his first wife, ended up in court fighting over the original of this painting. Mary ended up spending $25,000 in 1963 to get title to the painting. The original hung in her apartment in New York, but she kept this kind of worn copy taped up right outside her bathroom. So there's this sense that it had this really important and intimate connection to Mary. This is the room that was Ernest Hemingway's. He maintained a separate room. He liked to get up early in the morning to write, and he could have done that here from dawn till lunchtime and not have disturbed Mary. Hemingway liked to stand up when he wrote, especially later in life, and so it's believed that there was a dresser here, a tall dresser on which this typewriter sat, and Hemingway would have worked and looked out at this beautiful view into the Boulder Mountains. What's interesting is the Boulder Mountains now have a wilderness area that is named for Hemingway. Also in this room is one of the traveling bags that Hemingway owned. He had it made in Cuba, and it's monogrammed with his initials. So Hemingway liked to work from dawn till noon, and then he'd put away his work and he'd go out and he'd go for a hike, or he'd go fishing, or he'd go hunting in the afternoon. And so one of the things that drew him to Idaho was this ability to work well and then to play, right outside his backyard. And he said the area around the Bigwood River and central Idaho reminded him of Spain, and he loved Spain. And when he first arrived here in 1939, he was working on his book about Spain, about the Spanish Civil War, For Whom the Bell Tolls. And he was said to have thought that central Idaho would have made a good place to film the movie version of the book. We hope you've enjoyed this quick virtual tour of the Hemingway House in Ketchum, Idaho. We want to thank the community library providing not only access to the house, but also most of the information that went into this video. Thanks for joining us.